we have a colleague we used to work with at Green Tech Media, and he insisted on presenting tonight, and he wouldn't let us not have him present tonight. So there's a way, if you ever want to speak at Canary Media, just plant yourself in front of our door and protest. Andrew Krulewitz is a climate evangelist, a LinkedIn agitator, a cyclist, a parent, a partner, and an East Bay resident, and an all-around good guy. And he's going to give a state of California climate. And there he is.
Thank you, Eric. Hi, everybody. Very happy to be here with you all. I'm humbled to be here with you all. My participation in the California clean economy is truly a result of standing on the shoulders of giants, right? We got here through decades and decades of innovation, research, entrepreneurship, and capital allocation, not to mention amazing state support. California, it's a pretty nice place. Before last week, when I wouldn't take no for an answer from Eric, I offered my services as a hype man, an MC. I wanted to get people pumped up for being here, pumped up about what we are doing here in the state. But that was in a moment of pre-election cautious optimism. And then when he asked for a title for the presentation, it was the day after the election. And I was in a bit of a cynical mood. But if you know me, I'm an optimist. I truly am. But more than anything, I'm a realist. And I want to talk about the reality of where we are in the transition as somebody who's coming in from the outside. And the reason that I moved here a decade ago was to participate in the climate economy, to be a part of the solution in a place where you've got the top minds in the world coming together to focus on solving, or more recently, just trying to mitigate some of the effects of climate change. So the reality of the situation is we have a lot to celebrate. It's amazing that we live in a place, that I get to live in a place where politicians cut red tape to enable high-density, transit-oriented, infill development to allow more and more people to live in this amazing place. And if you can't live in a transit-oriented place, this is the one state, again, through amazing support from the state government and federal government, that basically willed the electric vehicle industry as we know it into being. Now, of course, there's one company that's largely responsible for this, and maybe we won't mention that. No, but in all seriousness, people ask me, hey, I want to get into climate, where should I go work? The one answer is Tesla. You know why? They actually get stuff done. So it's amazing to be a clean energy entrepreneur, able to live and work in a place like this. And what's even more amazing, the reality of the situation is, most of these EVs are increasingly being fueled with clean electrons. And I'm sure you all saw it well, I don't know if you all saw it, but I certainly saw it because I'm an energy nerd. For about 100 days this year, California's grid load demand was met by 100% renewable resources for at least some part of the day. Now, this is reality. This is the world that California has willed into being through smart support from government and local stakeholders and entrepreneurs and innovators, and I think this is something worth celebrating. So let's give it up. But this is our reality, right? We're a part of the movement. We're inside the tent. And given all that's gone on in just the last week, I think it's worth considering what the reality is for a majority of Californians who are not us. I'm lucky enough to live in Oakland, but in reality, the state has significantly underinvested in housing for the last 20 or 30 years. And that's largely due in some part to environmentalism and environmental regulations, right? NIMBYism. And so what happens is, by choice or by circumstance or both, more and more Californians are moving to places like this. And they've made a choice. And the reality of that choice is they now live in one of 6 metro areas that has the worst commute in the United States. 60% of the worst commutes in the United States are in California. We only have 13% of the nation's population, so we are disproportionately impacted by this housing crisis. And let's just say that I didn't get to live in Oakland, that I chose to live in Stockton. But most Californians were environmentally minded, so I have my choice of, okay, let's say a hybrid, which is the safe choice, or an EV. And if you start to do the math, hybrids are getting pretty good gas mileage these days, and gas is pretty cheap. And at the same time, electricity rates, and that is that is the state average residential rate, really don't save you all that much money on driving. And let's say that I lived in Stockton. The lowest off-peak energy rate available, if you don't make the switch to the EV rate, is 42 cents a kilowatt hour. 42 cents. You are paying more to drive an EV than you are to drive a hybrid. Now, somebody in the room will say, oh, well, we've got EV rates. Here's the reality of the EV education situation. 75% of PG&E customers who have an EV are not on the EV rate. Why? Why? It's a great question. It's a great question. I'm supposed to be hyping people up, right? And again, let's bring it back to reality. The state, the utilities, all of us, we are pushing the benefits of a fossil-free, renewable-powered economy. We've got abundant, low-cost solar and wind energy. And look, we know that life has gotten more expensive, right? CPI in California has gone up 40% in the last 10 years. But what's really shocking is that the average residential energy rate in California has gone up more than 3 times that. And so if we think about the narrative that we are telling to all of the folks in California, that renewables are good, that renewables are low cost, that we can make renewables reliable, if you're not a part of the movement, how do you square that with this when you open up your utility bill? Here's one more shocking stat. 1 in 5 California utility customers is behind on their bill. 20%. If we had 20% of people behind on their auto loan or 20% behind on their mortgage, that would be a financial calamity probably bigger than the financial crisis of 2008, 2009. It really is a dire situation. And it doesn't get better for most Californians. We live in a world of extreme heat events, extreme drought, worsening wildfires, and for most people, grid instability. And we know that these are the reasons that electricity prices are going up, right? We've got to invest in the system to make it work. But most people, they pay a lot for power, they pay a lot to drive, and this is the world that they live in. And I'm afraid that that reality is not one that many people want to be a part of, right? If people are environmental advocates, but then it's working against them, what's the incentive? All right, I'm a hype man. There's some good news. There's some good news. Next slide. We, as a state, and again, due in part to many of your contributions over the years, are, in fact, reducing harmful greenhouse gas emissions across the board, which is great. You know, that's worth celebrating. And it's not just lines on a graph. The air is actually getting cleaner. A study from Berkeley actually came out last year that the air is getting cleaner here due to the penetration of EVs, which is great, right? This is what we want. Reduce greenhouse gas emissions, improve air quality, people live cleaner, healthier lives. But the question for all of us is it enough? Is it enough to reduce air particulate by a few percentage points? And not is it enough to meet our climate targets, but is it enough for the average Californian? So let's think again about where folks are moving, folks are living. And if last week taught us anything, people vote their wallet. In 2020, all six of these counties voted blue. In 2024, 5 of the 6 voted red. And my fear, and this is not the hype part of the chat, but something that we all need to take to heart as members of this movement, is if we're not smart about radically changing the way in which we share the benefits of renewables, of electrification, I'm afraid that we're going to undermine our own movement. It's great, those of you in the audience who own a home, got a solar system before NEM 3.0, and basically have free energy. It's not me, you know? That's not me. And it really bothers me that I don't have that opportunity. And if you were somebody who's seeing their rates go up and up and up and up, I don't think that's a reality that you can believe in either. So this next panel, I'm sure there'll be lots of discussion on these points in particular. It's not the particularly high note that I intended to end on last week, but this is the reality of the situation that we're living in. And we may be in big trouble if we don't figure out a way to cut everybody in on this movement.